The scorching Texan sun beat down relentlessly, baking the vast, unforgiving desert landscape into a canvas of dust and stark, ancient rock formations. Mirages shimmered on the horizon, blurring the line between reality and illusion, much like the hidden fortunes that lay beneath this seemingly barren land. What truly dictates value? Is it the gleam of gold, the gush of oil, or something far more profound and overlooked, something lying dormant beneath our feet and within our very hearts? Amidst this colossal expanse lived Wyatt, a man forged by the solitude and resilience of the West. His face, weathered by years of sun and wind, told tales of quiet determination. Wyatt wasn't just a cowboy. He was a living extension of the land, his spirit as untamed as the wild horses that once roamed these plains. His most constant companion, a magnificent Mustang named Spirit, mirrored his own independent soul, their silent understanding a testament to their shared journeys across the rugged terrain surrounding the small, dusty town of Marfa, Texas. Wyatt's family, the formidable Andersons, were a name whispered with reverence and a touch of fear across the region. Their influence, rooted in sprawling ranches and lucrative oil fields, cast a long shadow, yet they remained largely distant figures in Wyatt's simple, self-reliant life. He sought not their power, but merely their understanding. It was during one of his solitary rides near the rugged contours of Paisano Pass, a place where whispers of ancient geologic forces still resonated, that Wyatt made his peculiar discovery. Spirit, usually placid, had snorted and pawed at a patch of sun-baked earth, drawing Wyatt's attention to an unusual protrusion. Digging it free, Wyatt wiped away the dust to reveal a rock unlike any he had ever seen. It wasn't glittering like gold, nor did it ooze oil, but it possessed an inexplicable density and an iridescent shimmer that hinted at something extraordinary. He felt it in his bones. This rock held an incredible secret, a value far beyond superficial appearances. Convinced of his find's potential, Wyatt, against his better judgment, sought out his family. He walked into the opulent yet sterile Anderson ranch house, the rock carefully wrapped in an old cloth. He laid it before them, his voice filled with a rare, quiet excitement. He tried to explain the subtle signs, the unusual weight, the strange energy he felt emanating from it. But his words were met with patronizing smiles and dismissive nods. His father, a man whose gaze could wither a lesser man, picked up the rock, turned it over once, and scoffed. "Another one of Wyatt's wild goose chases," he declared, tossing it onto a polished mahogany table. "A worthless rock, son. You'd do better to focus on the cattle, or perhaps the oil leases, things with actual value." His uncles and cousins echoed the sentiment, their laughter a sharp, stinging rebuke. They saw only a dreamer wasting time, an unpractical cowboy who refused to conform to their world of tangible assets and established wealth. Wyatt's earnest plea for support, for just a small investment to investigate his find further, was met with a resounding, humiliating rejection. His ambition, his intuition, his very spirit were mocked. The sting of their dismissal was not just about the rock. It was a deeper, personal wound, a confirmation of his status as the black sheep, the one who dared to see beyond their narrow vision. He was told implicitly and explicitly that there was no place for such fanciful notions within the hallowed halls of the Anderson legacy. That night, with the worthless rock tucked into his saddlebag and Spirit by his side, Wyatt rode away from the family home, exiled not by decree, but by their sheer dismissal of his worth. His heart ached, but a flicker of defiance sparked within him. He would prove them wrong. He had to. If you're captivated by stories of resilience, hidden treasures, and the unwavering spirit of those who dare to dream, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens next. Heartbroken but infused with a steely resolve, Wyatt turned his back on the imposing gates of the Anderson ranch, the dust from his worn boots kicking up a final, defiant cloud. He carried with him only a saddlebag stuffed with necessities, a crumpled map of the vast Texas plains, and the unwavering loyalty of spirit, his magnificent Mustang. The echoes of his family's dismissive laughter still stung, but they also fueled a quiet determination. He wasn't just leaving. He was embarking on an exile of his own choosing, a journey to prove them wrong. Their ancestral home, once a beacon of belonging, now felt like a prison he had gladly escaped. His destination was the desolate outskirts of Marfa, a place where the wide open spaces offered both a harsh reality and a canvas for new beginnings. Finding refuge wasn't easy. The small, isolated town, while quirky in its own right, offered little in the way of immediate opportunity for a man who had only ever known ranching. Wyatt quickly learned the brutal rhythm of survival on the fringes. He took on odd jobs, mending fences for distant ranchers, hauling supplies, even helping a local artist weld peculiar metal sculptures. Each dollar earned was a triumph, a testament to his sheer grit. Spirit, ever by his side, became his constant companion and confidant. Their bond deepened with every shared sunset and every arduous mile traversed under the unforgiving Texan sun. The Mustang's powerful gait and unwavering spirit mirrored Wyatt's own growing resilience. Even amidst the grinding labor and the gnawing uncertainty, Wyatt never forgot the worthless rock. Tucked safely within his meager belongings, it represented not just a potential fortune, but a symbol of his conviction against his family's scorn. Each night, by the flickering light of a kerosene lamp in his rented shack, he would pull out the rock. He'd turn it over and over in his calloused hands, its unusual weight and subtle luminescence a constant whisper of its true nature. He spent hours poring over borrowed books from the Marfa library, their worn pages a trove of geological diagrams and mineral classifications. His scientific knowledge was rudimentary, acquired through sheer curiosity and an innate connection to the land. But he understood enough to know this was no ordinary stone. He meticulously sketched its crystalline structure, noting its hardness and unique shimmer, trying to unravel the riddle it presented. Despite his limited resources and self-taught understanding, he believed in its secret, a secret his family had been too blind, too entrenched in their old ways, to see. One sweltering afternoon, while delivering fence posts to a ranch several miles west of Marfa, Wyatt overheard hushed whispers at the dusty general store. The conversation, punctuated by the clinking of bottles and the creak of the wooden floorboards, spoke of a new mining operation stirring to life in a remote, forgotten corner of the Chizos Mountains. A recent mineral discovery, they said, had sparked a quiet buzz, drawing prospectors and speculators like moths to a flame. The details were vague, shrouded in the usual desert gossip and speculation, but the mention of a rare, valuable mineral sent a jolt through Wyatt. Could it be connected? Could this be the lead he needed? It was a glimmer of hope, a potential path to vindication. He saw it not merely as an opportunity to secure wealth, but as a chance to prove his family's dismissive judgment utterly and spectacularly wrong. The desert, it seemed, was finally ready to yield its secrets, and Wyatt was determined to be the one to uncover them. One blistering afternoon, as Wyatt rode high along the parched ridges near Paisano Pass, Spirit, his trusty Mustang, suddenly grew agitated. The horse, usually so calm and sure-footed, began to snort and paw at a specific patch of sun-baked earth with unusual insistence. Wyatt, attuned to every nuance of his companion's behavior, immediately sensed this was no ordinary distraction. Spirit dug with a persistent, almost frantic energy, its broad chest heaving, its intelligent eyes fixed intently on the ground. There was an instinctual pull, a primal knowing in the animal's actions that Wyatt had learned to trust implicitly. This wasn't merely scratching an itch. Spirit was trying to unearth something. Dismounting, Wyatt knelt beside the agitated Mustang. The earth was hard-packed, resistant, but Spirit's relentless pawing had already loosed a shallow depression. Curiosity, mixed with a growing sense of anticipation, urged Wyatt to investigate further. He pulled out his small, sturdy trowel, a tool he always carried for setting up temporary camps or tending to Spirit's hooves, and began to carefully scrape away the loose soil. With each scoop, the ground revealed more than just dirt and pebbles. A dull gleam, almost imperceptible at first, caught his eye. He dug deeper, his heart beginning to quicken with a rhythm that echoed the thrumming of the desert heat. Then the glint became undeniable. Not just a speck, but a solid, continuous vein of the mineral, exactly like the one he held onto, the one his family had so scornfully dismissed as a worthless rock. It ran like a dark, crystalline river just beneath the surface, far more abundant and astonishingly accessible than he could have ever dared to imagine. It wasn't a small deposit or a scattered few fragments. This was a lode. A genuine, undeniable lode of the very material he had staked his reputation and his exile upon. The sheer scale of it, lying there in the unforgiving landscape, was breathtaking. Wyatt stared, his trowel forgotten in his hand, a mixture of disbelief and profound vindication washing over him. This was it. This was the proof he had craved, the answer to every sneer and dismissive word. The desert, his loyal companion, and his own unwavering belief had delivered. A surge of elation threatened to overwhelm him, a wild, untamed joy that felt as expansive as the Texan sky above. But almost immediately, a cold wave of doubt crashed over the initial excitement. He knew, with a chilling certainty, that this discovery, while monumental, also presented immense challenges. How would he extract it? How would he transport it? How would he prove its worth to a world that had already judged him? The enormity of the task, the potential repercussions, and the sheer difficulty of securing such a find weighed heavily on his mind. He knew he couldn't keep this to himself, not if he truly wanted to understand its potential. He needed an expert, someone whose knowledge transcended local gossip and ranching lore. Wyatt carefully covered the exposed vein, making a mental note of the precise location. Back in Marfa, he had heard whispers of an old recluse, a doctor, Elias Thorne, a retired geologist known for his brilliant, albeit eccentric, mind. Thorne lived on the quiet outskirts of town, surrounded by dusty books and geological samples, rumored to have mapped half the mineral deposits in the Southwest before mysteriously withdrawing from the world. Wyatt decided that Dr. Thorne was his only hope. He would approach the old man cautiously, a small, carefully chosen sample of his worthless rock clutched firmly in his hand, hoping to gain an ally, and perhaps a path to his future. Wyatt found Dr. Thorne's isolated adobe home, nestled amongst an impressive array of cacti, a monument to a life dedicated to the Earth's silent language. The air inside smelled of aged paper and something faintly metallic, a scent Wyatt quickly associated with mineral samples. Dr. Thorne, a wiry man with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of 1,000 geological epochs, peered at Wyatt over spectacles perched precariously on his nose. Wyatt, with a tremor of trepidation and a steady resolve, presented his carefully wrapped sample, the original worthless rock that had started his journey. Thorne took the rock with a practiced hand, turning it, feeling its weight, and then, without a word, vanished into a cluttered back room filled with microscopes and scientific instruments. Minutes stretched into an eternity for Wyatt, each second amplifying his hope and his lingering fear of renewed dismissal. When Thorne re-emerged, his expression was unreadable, but there was a new intensity in his gaze. He placed the rock gently on a worn wooden table, then reached for a small, dark rock himself. "Wyatt?" Thorne finally began, his voice surprisingly robust for his age. "What you have here is not just rare. It's practically unheard of in this abundance." He gestured to Wyatt's rock. "This is tellurium, and not just any tellurium, but a high-purity crystalline form. Crucial for advanced thermoelectrics, cutting-edge solar cells, and specific high-performance alloys used in aerospace and defense. The demand far outstrips the current supply, and most known deposits are deeply buried, difficult, and expensive to extract." The geologist then produced Wyatt's newly acquired samples from the vein near Paisano Pass. He laid them side by side with the original rock. "And this," Thorne continued, his voice tinged with a raw excitement that Wyatt hadn't expected from the reserved scholar. "This lode you've found, it's extraordinary. This isn't a small pocket, Wyatt. This is a significant deposit. If the samples are representative, which I suspect they are, you've stumbled upon a strategic resource. We're talking about a value that could redefine not just your future, but potentially the economic landscape of this entire region." Wyatt felt a dizzying mix of elation and disbelief. He had suspected value, perhaps even considerable value, but strategic resource and redefine the economic landscape were descriptors beyond his wildest imaginings. The sheer magnitude of his discovery settled upon him, a glorious, heavy mantle. This wasn't just about proving his family wrong anymore. It was about something far greater. He saw an opportunity to create something truly significant, an enterprise that could bring prosperity and innovation, not just for himself, but for the struggling community of Marfa that had given him refuge. This was a chance to build, to contribute, to leave a lasting mark, far beyond the narrow confines of his family's ranching empire. Dr. Thorne, sensing the enormity of the news for Wyatt, leaned forward, his expression now serious, almost conspiratorial. But precisely because of its immense value, Wyatt, this discovery must be handled with utmost discretion. A find of this nature will attract attention, the kind of attention from individuals and corporations who won't hesitate to exploit or even try to seize what you've found. Secrecy is paramount. We need a plan to secure this site, to legally claim it, and to begin development without alerting the wrong ears prematurely. Wyatt nodded slowly, his resolve hardening. The vindication was sweet, But the challenge ahead was daunting, and he knew he couldn't face it alone. The confirmation from Dr. Thorne had been both a blessing and a burden, a powerful affirmation of Wyatt's instinct, but also the opening salvo in a monumental undertaking. Securing legal claims for the mineral-rich land, a bureaucratic labyrinth of paperwork and precise surveying, became their immediate, daunting task. The scorching sun beat down relentlessly as Wyatt and Thorne meticulously marked boundaries, navigating obscure land deeds and mining regulations, each step a testament to the unforgiving nature of both the desert and the legal system. Financial strain gnawed at Wyatt. Every dollar earned from his meager odd jobs went towards filing fees, specialized equipment rentals, and the quiet stipends needed to keep Dr. Thorne's invaluable expertise flowing. The physical labor was relentless, digging exploratory trenches, carefully charting the veins' expansion, all the while praying to remain unseen and unheard. Wyatt knew he couldn't do this alone. The sheer scale of the project, even in its nascent stages, demanded more hands. He began to discreetly recruit, seeking out individuals who possessed not just skill, but also a deep knowledge of the land and an unwavering sense of loyalty. He found them in the fringes of Marfa, a handful of out-of-work miners, their faces etched with the hard lines of past struggles. A few local ranchers who had fallen on hard times, their integrity as solid as the West Texas earth. He offered them fair wages, a stark contrast to the exploitative practices often seen in such ventures, and a genuine share in the potential success, a promise that resonated deeply with those who had been overlooked by larger, more established operations. This small, dedicated team, bound by a shared belief in Wyatt's vision, became the backbone of the nascent enterprise, working quietly, efficiently, under the vast, watchful sky. Meanwhile, back at the sprawling Anderson Ranch, life continued in its predictable, opulent rhythm. Wyatt's family remained utterly oblivious to the quiet revolution unfolding just miles away. His father, absorbed in negotiations for a new cattle shipment, fretted over fluctuating feed prices, while his brothers strategized over expanding their oil leases, perhaps even facing minor setbacks in drilling permits that ate into their expected profits. They were consumed by their own world, their traditional empire, entirely unaware that a fortune far exceeding their current endeavors was being painstakingly unearthed by the very sun they had cast aside. The irony was a bitter, silent current beneath the desert's surface, a secret known only to Wyatt, Thorne, and his small, loyal crew. As Wyatt's operation slowly and cautiously expanded, the cloak of secrecy began to fray. More equipment was needed, more supplies transported, more hands moving earth. Despite their best efforts, the increased activity in the remote corners of the desert could not escape the ever-watchful eyes of the small town. Whispers, like the dry tumbleweeds rolling across the landscape, started to circulate through Marfa's cafes and general stores. "Have you heard about Wyatt?" someone might ask, leaning in conspiratorially. "He's got some sort of mysterious project out there, way past the old Paisano Pass." Others might scoff, recalling his family's dismissive remarks, but the murmurs persisted, growing louder, hinting at something significant, something that was slowly but surely drawing attention from the quiet solitude of the desert into the speculative glare of the community. The pressure to maintain their cover mounted with each passing day. The initial sale of a carefully extracted modest batch of the rare mineral marked a turning point, a surge of tangible success that reverberated through Wyatt's fledgling operation. This wasn't merely a profit, it was validation, a crucial financial injection that transformed his cautious endeavors into a rapidly expanding enterprise. The capital allowed him to invest in more robust equipment, moving beyond the crude tools of discovery to proper mining gear. He could finally afford to bring on more skilled personnel, not just enthusiastic locals, but experienced hands who understood the nuances of extraction and processing this unique material. Every dollar earned was meticulously reinvested, fueling a momentum that felt almost unstoppable. With each successful transaction, Wyatt himself underwent a profound transformation. The guarded, somewhat hesitant cowboy, still bearing the emotional scars of his family's dismissal, began to shed his reticence. He gained an undeniable confidence, a quiet authority born from hard-won victories. The raw determination that had sustained him through exile now coalesced into a sharper business acumen. He learned to negotiate, to strategize, to lead with a calm assurance that commanded respect. Yet, through it all, he retained his core values. His humility remained, his connection to the land unwavering, and his commitment to fair dealings with his growing crew inviolate. He wasn't just a boss. He was a leader, a figure that inspired loyalty and a genuine belief in the shared dream. The rough-hewn cowboy was evolving into an entrepreneur of formidable resolve, a respected figure whose word was his bond, not just in the dusty camps, but increasingly in the nascent mineral markets. Meanwhile, back at the sprawling Anderson Ranch, life was far less forgiving. The once unassailable family diversified their interests, but their traditional mainstays began to buckle under unforeseen pressures. A prolonged drought had parched their vast rangelands, decimating livestock and straining their resources. Years of abundant oil revenues had fostered a sense of security, but a sudden, sharp downturn in global oil prices began to bite deep, exposing vulnerabilities they hadn't known existed. The very foundations of their wealth, which they had deemed immutable, started to erode. Financial reports became grim, family meetings grew tense, and the weight of looming losses pressed heavily upon them. Their prosperity, once so assured, now felt precarious, a stark contrast to the unseen, burgeoning fortune Wyatt was meticulously orchestrating just beyond their immediate purview. They were facing their own set of trials, unaware that their own kin was now not only weathering similar storms, but building something entirely new and thriving. The growing success, the mounting evidence of his vindication, brought with it a complex internal struggle for Wyatt. The thought of revealing his monumental discovery to his family, of laying bare the proof of their terrible misjudgment, flickered in his mind. He imagined their faces, the dawning realization of what they had thrown away. There was an undeniable allure in that moment of triumphant unveiling. Yet, the bitterness of their past rejection, the deep emotional wounds they had inflicted, remained. He had suffered, had clawed his way back from nothing, all while they continued in their insulated world, oblivious. He still yearned for vindication, not merely as an act of showing off, but as a deep, soul-satisfying acknowledgement of his foresight and their profound error. Reconciliation felt like a distant, perhaps even undesirable prospect, if it didn't first come with a full reckoning of what had transpired. His resolve hardened. The time for a big reveal was approaching, but it would happen on his terms, in a way that left no doubt about who had truly seen the value in that worthless rock. The dusty expanse of the Anderson Ranch, once a symbol of their unshakable dominion, now concealed the first cracks in their carefully constructed facade. During a routine inspection of a recently acquired parcel of land, ostensibly for cattle grazing, but secretly eyed for potential new oil leases, a younger Anderson descendant, fresh out of agricultural college and brimming with ambition, made an unsettling discovery. He wasn't looking for minerals, certainly not the kind Wyatt had touted, but rather signs of water resources or suitable drilling spots. His boots scuffed against a patch of unusually disturbed earth, leading him to a nearly concealed access road, clearly recently used, veering off towards the distant Paisano Pass. Further investigation revealed faint tire tracks, far too heavy for ranch vehicles, and a scattering of discarded mineral sampling bags, oddly familiar in their design. He picked one up, noting the distinctive labeling, and a prickle of unease ran down his spine. He reported his findings to the patriarch, downplaying their significance, but his voice held an uncharacteristic tremor. Initially, the family patriarch, still reeling from the financial pressures of the drought and dwindling oil profits, dismissed the young man's report as the over-eager imaginings of someone new to the business. "Just some prospectors chasing fool's gold, son," he'd grumbled, waving a dismissive hand. "Happens all the time out here." But the seed of doubt had been planted. The persistent whispers from Marfa about Wyatt's mysterious project began to gain an uncomfortable resonance. The patriarch, despite his outward dismissal, ordered a discreet and thorough aerial survey of the western boundary of their lands, venturing into the areas near Paisano Pass. The satellite images revealed what the young Andersons' boots had hinted at, a nascent yet unmistakably organized operation. Faint outlines of temporary structures, heavy machinery, carefully camouflaged, and a network of newly carved tracks snaking across the previously untouched wilderness. The scale and meticulous secrecy of the activity were impossible to ignore. This was no fool's gold expedition. This was something substantial. The pieces began to click into place with a horrifying clarity. The worthless rock Wyatt had presented so earnestly years ago, the one they had scoffed at, the very reason for his painful exile, now loomed large in their collective memory. The location, the secretive nature, the mineral sampling bags, it all pointed to one inescapable, devastating conclusion. Wyatt had been right all along. Marfa's whispers became undeniable shouts in their inner circle. The land they had considered barren, the very ground near their own crumbling empire, held untold riches. And their estranged kin, the dreamer they had disowned, was now its quiet, determined guardian. The realization struck them with the force of a physical blow, a deep, gut-wrenching understanding of their profound misjudgment and the immense fortune they had so carelessly discarded. It wasn't just a discovery. It was a betrayal of their own blood, a monumental oversight fueled by their rigid pride and short-sighted vision. A potent concoction of shame and anger began to brew within the Anderson household. Shame for their arrogance, for their cruel dismissal of Wyatt, for failing to see the potential he had so clearly articulated. And anger, a bitter, seething rage at Wyatt himself. How dare he keep this a secret from them? How dare he succeed so spectacularly without their knowledge, without their involvement? They perceived his secrecy not as a self-preservation tactic against their past cruelty, but as a deliberate slight, an act of calculated revenge intended to rub their faces in their colossal error. They felt defrauded, not just of potential wealth, but of their family pride, their carefully cultivated image of unassailable sagacity. The patriarch, his face a mask of furious contemplation, ran a hand over the aerial photographs, the image of Wyatt's burgeoning empire mocking him from the grainy monochrome. The time for reckoning had arrived. The Anderson family, now fully appraised of Wyatt's burgeoning success and the true nature of his worthless rock, found themselves in a tempest of conflicting emotions and urgent deliberation. Wyatt's stern father, a man whose pride was as vast as the Texan landscape, convened a series of tense, closed-door meetings. Voices rose and fell, arguments flared, some advocating for an immediate, forceful assertion of their ancestral claims, eyeing the land Wyatt had secured as rightfully theirs. "He's still our blood," one uncle grumbled, "but he's operating on what should have been family land. We claim it." Others, however, perhaps sensing the shift in public sentiment and the legal complexities, urged caution, suggesting a more diplomatic but equally firm approach to assert their perceived rights, aiming for a significant share of Wyatt's newfound wealth. The shame of their past dismissal warred with a potent sense of entitlement, creating a volatile atmosphere within the family compound. They meticulously planned their strategy, weighing legal precedent against social standing, every option scrutinized for its potential impact on their tarnished reputation and their dwindling fortunes. Wyatt, meanwhile, felt the subtle tremors of their awakening. The desert, his trusted confidant, seemed to hum with new tension. Local gossip, usually a low murmur, had begun to amplify, hinting at unusual activity around the Anderson ranch. He noticed unfamiliar vehicles lingering near the perimeter of his property, and whispers from his trusted team confirmed an uptick in curious inquiries about his operations. He was a man of the land, keenly attuned to shifts in his environment, and this felt like the approach of a storm. He heightened security measures around his mining site, reinforcing perimeters and increasing surveillance. He consulted Dr. Thorne, not just for geological advice, but for counsel on legal defenses and public relations. Wyatt knew instinctively that his success, once a shield against their scorn, would now become the very magnet drawing their ire. He had built this empire from nothing, with his own hands and keen vision, and he was prepared to defend it with every fiber of his being. The time for quietly building was over. The time for confrontation was rapidly approaching. The inevitable first encounter was orchestrated with a chilling formality. Not a dramatic showdown at the mine, but a summons delivered through legal channels. An invitation, really, to a discussion regarding overlapping historical land claims and mineral rights to be held at a neutral, upscale law office in Marfa. Wyatt arrived, accompanied by Dr. Thorne and a newly retained formidable legal team, his cowboy boots strangely out of place on the polished marble floors. The Anderson contingent was already there, a phalanx of suits and stony faces, led by his father, whose eyes held a mixture of resentment and grudging admiration. The air crackled with unspoken history and suppressed fury. The legal niceties were exchanged, but the underlying message from the Andersons was clear. They wanted in, and they believed they had a right to it. Wyatt, however, was no longer the dismissed dreamer who had once pleaded for their belief. He sat across from them, his posture relaxed, but his gaze unwavering, betraying no hint of the old subservience. He listened to their veiled demands, their carefully worded assertions of family legacy, and their thinly disguised attempts to diminish his achievement. When it was his turn to speak, his voice was calm and steady, each word carrying the weight of his solitary struggle. He methodically reminded them of their categorical rejection, of their insistence that his rock was worthless, of his forced exile. He spoke not with anger, but with an almost surgical precision, dissecting their past failures and highlighting his unassisted triumph. He stated unequivocally that what he had built was his, forged through his resilience and their indifference. He would protect his enterprise, his team, and his vision, and he would not be swayed by belated claims of familial right. This was his stand, and it was unyielding. The simmering resentment between Wyatt and the Anderson family quickly boiled over into outright conflict. The Andersons, accustomed to wielding their considerable influence as a blunt instrument, unleashed a barrage of legal challenges designed to cripple Wyatt's fledgling operation. Their lawyers meticulously scoured land records, permit applications, and environmental impact assessments, searching for any technicality that could invalidate Wyatt's claims or halt his progress. They initiated frivolous lawsuits, claiming encroachment on family land despite clear demarcations, and even attempted to lobby state officials to revoke permits already granted, painting Wyatt as an inexperienced cowboy dabbling in complex mining operations he couldn't possibly manage. Rumors, subtle yet insidious, began to circulate through Marfa's close-knit community, whispered in cafes and across dusty countertops. Whispers of Wyatt cutting corners, of unsafe practices, of a project destined for catastrophic failure that would ultimately harm the region. This campaign of attrition was relentless, a calculated attempt to exhaust Wyatt's resources and spirit. However, Wyatt, now hardened by experience and fortified by the confirmed immense value of his discovery, was no longer the easily dismissed dreamer of old. With Dr. Thorne's invaluable legal guidance and deep understanding of mineral rights, he met each challenge head-on. Thorne, drawing on decades of navigating complex geological and legal landscapes, meticulously prepared counter-arguments, presenting irrefutable evidence of Wyatt's legitimate claims and the scrupulous integrity of his operations. Every permit was valid, every boundary meticulously surveyed, every environmental protocol rigorously adhered to. Wyatt had anticipated such tactics, having spent early days ensuring all his paperwork was beyond reproach, knowing the Andersons' methods intimately. The legal skirmishes became a battle of wills, and for every thrust the Andersons made, Wyatt, guided by Thorne, parried with precision and undeniable legal precedent. During these increasingly stressful periods, Spirit, Wyatt's magnificent Mustang, remained a constant grounding presence. The horse, embodying the untamed spirit of the desert itself, often served as Wyatt's most profound confidant. There was a particular moment, following a particularly brutal legal hearing, where the Anderson lawyers had tried to paint Wyatt as a charlatan, that he found himself utterly drained. He rode Spirit out into the familiar expanse of the desert, the big horse's rhythmic gait a soothing balm to his frayed nerves. As they stopped overlooking the growing mine site, Spirit nudged Wyatt's hand, a soft wicker escaping his nostrils. It wasn't just comfort. It was a silent reminder of how far they had come. From that first pawing at the earth to the bustling, organized operation now spread before them. Spirit, in his stoic presence, seemed to affirm the righteousness of Wyatt's journey, an unspoken promise of unwavering loyalty and a deep, intrinsic connection to the land that Wyatt honored above all else. This moment of quiet communion re-centered Wyatt, steeling his resolve for the battles yet to come. As the conflict unfolded publicly, the townsfolk of Marfa, initially hesitant to pick sides against the powerful Anderson dynasty, gradually began to shift their allegiance. The Andersons' aggressive, almost ruthless tactics contrasted sharply with Wyatt's quiet determination and transparent dealings. They saw Wyatt, the local cowboy who had always been fair and honest, now standing firm against a family that seemed intent on crushing him, not for legitimate reasons, but out of pride and a perceived slight. Wyatt's commitment to providing well-paying jobs, his respectful treatment of his workers, and his measured responses to the Andersons' attacks began to earn him widespread admiration. The whispers in Marfa changed, evolving from rumors of failure to grudging respect, and then to open support for the man who was building something remarkable from nothing, even in the face of relentless opposition from those who once scorned him. The Anderson family, despite their aggressive legal maneuvering and attempts to destabilize Wyatt's thriving operation, found themselves in an increasingly precarious position. Their traditional businesses, once pillars of the West Texas economy, were suffering. A prolonged drought had severely impacted their vast cattle ranch, forcing difficult decisions about herd size and feed procurement, decisions that gnawed at their already strained finances. Simultaneously, the global oil market experienced an unexpected downturn, significantly reducing the profitability of their once reliable petroleum ventures. Each setback felt like a personal affront, and the stark contrast between their dwindling fortunes and Wyatt's burgeoning success, fueled by the very worthless rock they had scorned, was an unbearable weight. Desperation began to creep into their boardroom discussions, replacing their usual arrogance with a simmering resentment and a growing fear of ruin. The public's increasing support for Wyatt only intensified their isolation and bitterness, further eroding their once unshakable standing in the community. Their pride, once a source of strength, was now a heavy burden, hindering any rational thought of compromise or reconciliation. It was in this atmosphere of escalating tension and impending collapse that the matriarch of the Anderson family, Eleanor Anderson, Wyatt's formidable grandmother, finally intervened. A woman of legendary resolve and keen intellect, Eleanor had silently observed the unfolding family drama, her sharp eyes missing nothing. She had, in her youth, helped build the Anderson empire alongside her late husband, and she possessed a deep understanding of both family honor and pragmatic survival. The current trajectory of conflict, she realized, was leading only to mutual destruction. The damage being inflicted upon the Anderson name, a name she had spent a lifetime nurturing, was becoming irreparable. She saw not just the financial ruin looming, but the moral decay, the corrosive effect of unchecked pride and relentless animosity. The injustice of their initial dismissal of Wyatt, a dismissal rooted in their own short-sighted prejudices, weighed heavily on her conscience. She remembered Wyatt as a boy, quiet and observant, with a profound connection to the land that none of the others truly shared. Gathering the family for a tense, unannounced meeting, Eleanor spoke with an authority that left no room for dissent. Her voice, though softened by age, carried the weight of generations. She did not mince words, calling out their collective arrogance and the foolishness of their prolonged vendetta. She reminded them of the core values their family once upheld: integrity, foresight, and a deep respect for the land and its potential. This destructive path, she declared, was dishonoring their ancestors and destroying their future. With a quiet but firm resolve, she proposed a truce, not out of weakness, but out of a desperate need for survival and a glimmer of hope for genuine reconciliation. She suggested mediation, a formal process where both sides could present their grievances and, hopefully, find a path forward that honored Wyatt's achievements while salvaging the family's legacy. Eleanor's intervention was a turning point, a recognition that the family's pride had become a straitjacket rather than a shield. Wyatt, upon hearing of his grandmother's intervention and the proposal for mediation, found himself in a deep internal struggle. The news was delivered by Dr. Thorne, who had heard it through his extensive network, a testament to Eleanor's quiet influence. Wyatt had every right to refuse. The scars of his family's betrayal ran deep, and the thought of their complete ruin, though perhaps a just consequence of their past cruelty, still weighed on him. Despite their relentless opposition, they were still his family, and the prospect of their total downfall, even if self-inflicted, brought him no joy. He had built his empire on resilience and justice, not vengeance. He reflected on his own values, the principles that had guided him through the lean years: fairness, hard work, and an unwavering belief in his vision. Could he truly build a lasting legacy if it meant the complete destruction of his own kin, even those who had wronged him so profoundly? The desert winds whispered questions, and the silence of his thoughts deepened as he wrestled with the most profound decision of his extraordinary journey. The air in the austere Marfa Community Hall crackled with unspoken tension, a stark contrast to the vast, open desert just beyond its walls. This was the venue for the formal mediation, a last-ditch effort initiated by the Anderson matriarch to bridge the chasm between Wyatt and his family. Wyatt sat across a polished, scarred oak table from his father, his uncle, and the stern-faced family lawyer. He began by recounting, in a measured, calm voice, the betrayal that had driven him from their home. He detailed the casual dismissal of his worthless rock, the mockery that had followed, and the cold, unyielding eviction from the only life he had ever known within the family fold. His words were not laced with anger, but resonated with a quiet, undeniable pain, laying bare the deep emotional wounds inflicted by their collective disdain. He spoke of his perseverance, his struggles, and the eventual undeniable proof of his vision, forged through hardship and unwavering belief. He presented the facts, the geological reports, the booming production numbers, each point a silent testament to his vindication. Wyatt's father, a man whose pride was as legendary as his ranching empire, shifted uncomfortably. His eyes, usually sharp and dismissive, now held a flicker of something akin to shame, mixed with a dawning realization of the magnitude of their error. When it was their turn to speak, the usual bluster and legalistic deflections were conspicuously absent. The family lawyer, too, seemed subdued, offering none of his typical aggressive counsel. Instead, after a long, heavy silence, Wyatt's father cleared his throat, his gaze fixed on the table before him. He spoke haltingly at first, then with increasing clarity, acknowledging their grave misjudgment. He admitted their pride had blinded them, their focus on traditional ventures preventing them from seeing the value in something unconventional. He confessed to the arrogance that had dismissed Wyatt's genuine discovery, and, in a moment that stunned even the mediator, offered a reluctant yet sincere apology for their past actions and the pain they had inflicted upon him. His uncle echoed the sentiment, his voice thick with regret. It was the matriarch, Wyatt's grandmother, who then stepped forward, her voice surprisingly firm for her age, cutting through the residual tension. She proposed a path forward, one that sought to mend not only the business rift, but the fractured family bonds. Her proposal was clear. The Anderson family would issue a formal public apology to Wyatt, acknowledging his sole ownership of the mineral rights and his undisputed leadership of the enterprise. In return, she suggested, Wyatt would offer them a fair and equitable partnership in his venture. This wasn't about taking over, she clarified, but about rebuilding, about contributing their considerable business acumen and resources to an operation that had already proven itself under Wyatt's stewardship. The terms would safeguard Wyatt's control and vision, acting as a collaborative force rather than a controlling one. Wyatt listened, his face a mask of careful consideration. The public apology would be a powerful vindication, something he had unconsciously craved. The offer of partnership, though initially jarring, also presented an opportunity. He knew the scale of his operation was growing, requiring more capital, more infrastructure, more logistical support than he could manage entirely alone, even with Dr. Thorne's invaluable assistance. The Andersons, despite their past failings, possessed generations of experience in managing large-scale operations in West Texas, an asset not to be easily dismissed. After a lengthy pause, during which the fate of both his venture and his family hung in the balance, Wyatt looked at his grandmother, then at his father, his eyes searching for genuine remorse. He finally nodded, agreeing to the partnership, but with strict, non-negotiable conditions. These conditions included absolute financial transparency, a guarantee of his ultimate decision-making authority, and an ironclad commitment to respect his vision and the unique culture he had fostered within his company. It was a firm yet hopeful step toward a future he had never imagined. The deep-seated animosity between Wyatt and his family finally began to thaw as the Anderson family publicly extended their apology. It was a momentous occasion, one carefully orchestrated by the elder matriarch, bringing together Wyatt, his father, and the rest of the family at a neutral ground within Marfa. The town, accustomed to the subtle dramas of ranching life, watched with bated breath as the Andersons swallowed their pride, admitting their grave misjudgment and expressing remorse for their past dismissals and subsequent aggressive actions. This surprising reconciliation marked not just a new chapter for Wyatt, but a profound healing within the fractured Anderson lineage itself. The initial handshake between Wyatt and his father, once stiff and formal, now held a renewed, if still tentative, warmth. It was a visible sign to all present that something fundamentally had shifted, ushering in a fresh era for both Wyatt and his family. With the formalities concluded and a new understanding forged, the Anderson family began to integrate into Wyatt's burgeoning operation. It wasn't an immediate, seamless transition. Old habits and hierarchical structures had to be consciously dismantled. However, the family members, chastened by their earlier mistakes and now genuinely invested in the venture's success, brought their considerable expertise in land management, logistical planning, and expansive business networks to the table. They worked diligently, but always under Wyatt's clear leadership and unwavering vision. This new collaboration proved remarkably effective. The younger Andersons, once dismissive of Wyatt, now looked to him for guidance, recognizing his entrepreneurial spirit and the profound foresight he had displayed. This respectful partnership demonstrated a powerful lesson. True strength lies not in dominance, but in shared purpose and mutual respect, a stark contrast to their previous insular ways. Wyatt's venture, now bolstered by unified family effort and the continuing rich yield of the mineral lode, thrived beyond anyone's wildest expectations, bringing unprecedented prosperity to Marfa. The once sleepy desert town buzzed with new energy. The mining operation created hundreds of well-paying jobs, drawing skilled workers and their families to the area. This influx spurred growth in local businesses. New restaurants opened, hardware stores expanded, and housing developments began to rise. Infrastructure, long neglected in the remote region, saw significant improvements with new roads, upgraded utilities, and increased funding for public services. Marfa, once known primarily for its enigmatic lights and artistic community, experienced a full-blown revitalization, becoming a beacon of economic opportunity in the vast expanse of West Texas. The dusty streets now hummed with a different kind of commerce, a direct result of Wyatt's perseverance. Wyatt himself transitioned from a humble cowboy to a local legend, a living embodiment of perseverance, integrity, and the unexpected riches hidden beneath the austere surface of the Texan desert. His story, whispered in coffee shops and recounted at community gatherings, inspired countless others in the region. He became a symbol of trusting one's intuition, even when scorned by those closest to you. His journey taught that true value often lies not in what is immediately apparent, but in what one is willing to pursue with unwavering conviction. He was more than just a successful businessman. He was a testament to the idea that honor, hard work, and a deep connection to the land could lead to triumphs far greater than mere material wealth, forging a legacy that reshaped an entire community and redefined what success truly meant in the heart of Texas. The original worthless rock, the very catalyst for this extraordinary saga, now occupied a place of honor, enshrined within a specially curated exhibit at the newly established Marfa Mineralogy Museum. It sat encased in glass, bathed in soft, reverent light, a humble but powerful testament to the deceptive nature of perceived value. A small plaque beneath it detailed its journey from a discarded curiosity to the cornerstone of an empire, serving as a constant, poignant reminder to all who visited that true worth is often hidden, overlooked by superficial judgment. This particular exhibit quickly became the museum's centerpiece, drawing visitors from across the state and beyond, each person contemplating the profound lesson it offered. Never underestimate the potential lurking beneath the surface, be it in a rock, a person, or an idea. It represented not just a mineral discovery, but a philosophical shift for the community, a physical embodiment of Marfa's transformation. Spirit, the magnificent Mustang, now almost as famous as Wyatt himself, continued to be his loyal companion, his steadfast shadow. The Discovery Mustang, as locals affectionately called him, was a living symbol of the profound, almost mystical bond between man, animal, and the land. Spirit often grazed peacefully near the company's expanding headquarters, a majestic presence reminding everyone of the instinctual wisdom that had first led Wyatt to his destiny. Children visiting the museum would often sneak peeks at the legendary horse, their eyes wide with wonder at the animal who had sniffed out a fortune. Wyatt still rode Spirit regularly through the vast desert landscapes, finding solace and clarity in their shared silent communication, a timeless connection that remained unbroken despite the dizzying changes around them. Spirit was a constant, grounding force in a world that had become incredibly complex. Beyond the immediate economic boom and local fame, Wyatt's discovery generated broader ripples, touching the scientific community in ways no one had initially foreseen. The unique composition of the mineral, once fully analyzed by leading geologists and material scientists, proved to have unprecedented applications in advanced technology sectors. It spurred new research efforts into sustainable energy solutions, aerospace engineering, and medical diagnostics. Universities established dedicated research grants and international scientific conferences were held in Marfa, attracting brilliant minds from around the globe. The once remote town became an unexpected hub for innovation, contributing significantly to humanity's collective scientific advancement. Wyatt, ever the practical man, keenly understood the responsibility that came with such a discovery, investing portions of his profits into further scientific exploration and ethical extraction practices, ensuring that the legacy of his find extended far beyond mere financial gain. The narrative now began to hint at the future, a vibrant tapestry woven with the threads of past lessons and future aspirations. Younger members of the Anderson family, once prone to arrogance and entitlement, now worked diligently alongside Wyatt, their faces alight with a newfound sense of purpose. They learned from his journey not just the intricacies of mining and business, but the invaluable principles of humility, perseverance, and shared vision. Wyatt, in turn, mentored them, imparting wisdom gleaned from his own crucible of betrayal and triumph. These young minds, imbued with Wyatt's ethos and their family's renewed commitment, were poised to carry on a legacy built not on old money or inherited status, but on respect, innovation, and a deep understanding of the land's hidden potential. They represented a new generation of Andersons, fundamentally reshaped by Wyatt's story, ready to lead Marfa into an even brighter, more sustainable future, ensuring the prosperity and integrity of their enterprise for decades to come. The initial worthless rock had truly laid the foundation for an enduring dynasty. Even with the immense success and newfound family unity, the journey wasn't without its continuous growth and persistent challenges. The global market for the rare mineral proved dynamic, experiencing unpredictable fluctuations that required careful navigation. Environmental responsibilities, inherent in any large-scale mining operation, demanded constant vigilance and innovative solutions to maintain ecological balance in the fragile desert ecosystem. Managing a rapidly expanding enterprise, now employing hundreds, brought its own complexities. Logistics, human resources, and maintaining operational efficiency on a massive scale. Wyatt, however, was no longer alone. With the Anderson family's seasoned expertise in business administration and their well-established networks, they collectively tackled these issues with a newfound wisdom and collaborative spirit. Their past mistakes had forged a formidable, resilient leadership team, constantly adapting and innovating to stay ahead in a competitive world, proving that true growth often emerges from overcoming adversity. Remembering his own arduous struggles and the lean times he endured, Wyatt initiated extensive philanthropic efforts throughout Marfa. He believed strongly in giving back to the community that had, in its own way, steadfastly supported him during his darkest hours. He funded new wings for the local hospital, ensuring access to modern medical care for all residents. New classrooms and technological resources appeared in Marfa's schools, providing younger generations with unprecedented educational opportunities. Community centers were renovated, parks revitalized, and art programs, already a cornerstone of Marfa's unique identity, received generous endowments. These initiatives weren't merely token gestures. They were deeply personal investments aimed at genuinely uplifting every facet of Marfa life. Wyatt's giving back was not just about money. It was about fostering a thriving, equitable community where everyone had a chance to prosper, echoing his own journey from despair to deliverance. In quieter moments, often with Spirit by his side, Wyatt frequently reflected on his extraordinary journey. He replayed the searing pain of his family's betrayal, the grinding hardship of his solitary struggle, the exhilarating triumph of discovery, and the surprising yet profoundly healing reconciliation. He understood now, with crystal clarity, that the true value he uncovered was never solely in the rare mineral itself. It lay equally, if not more so, in his own unwavering resilience, his stubborn belief in his intuition, and the transformative power of forgiveness. He realized that holding on to bitterness would have ultimately diminished his own spirit, preventing the very growth and peace he now enjoyed. The wealth was a byproduct, a material manifestation of an internal fortitude that had been tested and proven. His self-worth had become inextricably linked not to their approval, but to his own steadfast heart. The story was not just his. It was deeply intertwined with the vast, mysterious Texan desert. The endless horizon and the silent ancient landscape constantly reminded him that it still held countless secrets waiting patiently beneath its sun-baked surface. This realization served as a humble reminder, even amidst his unparalleled success, that hidden potential truly lies everywhere. Whether it was a worthless rock beneath Spirit's restless hooves, an untapped human spirit, or an overlooked corner of the world, discovery awaited those with the courage to look, the patience to wait, and the wisdom to understand what others failed to see. The desert, unforgiving yet generous, continued its silent vigil, a living testament to the enduring mystery of the land and the boundless possibilities it offered to those willing to listen to its whispers. Wyatt stood tall, a silhouette against the fiery Texan sunset, looking out over his thriving enterprise. The sprawling operation, a testament to years of unwavering belief and relentless effort, hummed with activity, a symphony of progress. The vast landscape that had once seemed to mock his ambitions now cradled his success, its stark beauty mirroring the resilience he had cultivated within himself. He had not only unearthed immense geological wealth from the Earth's hidden depths, but had, more importantly, rebuilt his fractured family, forging bonds stronger and more united than the ones they had broken. The Anderson name, once synonymous with rigid tradition and exclusionary pride, now represented collaborative innovation and shared prosperity, a direct result of Wyatt's unwavering spirit. A profound sense of peace settled over him, a quiet triumph that resonated deeper than any financial gain. His journey had been a crucible, refining his understanding of worth. It wasn't merely the glittering mineral that held value, but the unyielding perseverance that drove him, the unwavering trust he placed in his own instincts, even when faced with the scorn of his own blood. Forgiveness, once a bitter pill, had transformed into a powerful balm, healing old wounds and allowing new growth. He recalled the sting of his family's dismissal, the weight of their judgment, and contrasted it with the shared laughter and purposeful work that now defined their days. This emotional conclusion wasn't merely about an ending, but about the profound transformation of a man, a family, and an entire community. Wyatt's story, infused with the grit and grandeur of the desert, transformed into an enduring legend in Marfa. It was recounted in hushed tones around campfires, woven into the fabric of local folklore, a testament to a cowboy who had refused to give up, even when his own family had turned their backs on him. His legacy extended beyond the bustling mine. It was etched into the very spirit of the town. He became a symbol of defying expectations, of seeing potential where others saw only desolation. Every child growing up in Marfa would hear tales of Wyatt and spirit, a reminder that true treasures often lie hidden, visible only to those with courage, vision, and an open heart. The whispers of his journey would continue to inspire, affirming that genuine worth is not always recognized immediately, but ultimately reveals itself through tenacity and integrity. His life proved that the vast, enigmatic Texan desert could yield more than just minerals. It could forge character, mend broken ties, and ultimately create an identity far grander than any individual ambition. It was a story not just of a man finding his fortune, but of a man finding his place, his purpose, and ultimately himself, against the backdrop of an unforgiving yet ultimately generous land. This incredible journey of Wyatt and his Mustang spirit, of betrayal and astonishing discovery, is a powerful reminder that sometimes the most priceless treasures are hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone brave enough to look beyond the obvious. If Wyatt's unwavering spirit and his incredible tale of resilience resonated with you, please ensure you subscribe to our channel. Give this video a like and share it with anyone who loves a story of triumph against all odds, because there are countless more untold sagas etched into the heart of this world, waiting for us to uncover them